The fight or flight response is primarily concerned with survival. Your mind is so focused on surviving that you're not in a state to receive the clarity and alignment that's needed for manifestation, or even just more simply aligned action. And so it distracts us. It really is distracting us from focusing on our desires and like disrupting the coherence between conscious and subconscious mind. Welcome back, guys, to the Butterfly Season podcast. I'm excited to chat with you guys today about why I started a 120-day Hypnobreathwork challenge. Now, there's a lot of backstory, so let's start there. I recently went on a 10-day trip to Europe with my husband, and leading up to the vacation, I was like, I'm going to get everything done. I'm going to do all of the things, because when I do all of the things, when I go on vacation, I will really be able to relax. I won't have to think about anything. Everything will already be handled for me. And somewhere along the way, that started to mean for me, add more to my plate, do all of these things so everything can be on autopilot, almost for the rest of summer type of vibe. Even though I was only going to be gone for those 10 days, but I just wanted to the goal was relaxation. And so leading up to leaving, literally the week before, the week of, honestly, the whole month long, my schedule was so packed. I had regular work obligations. I had a pop-up for my jewelry line, Whxte. It was a collaboration with another brand. And so that took a ton of time creating, putting together the install, selling the tickets, everything. And then I also had a full half day of recording podcasts with four different people, a full day or 5-hour day. So that was something that I was leading up to, all the pre-work, post-work, all of the things. And I had a speaking engagement, pre-work and post-work on that. And the reason why I'm listing them all out, just so that you can kind of get a full breadth of what I was dealing with. Typically, I don't do all of that in 1 month, let alone a handful of weeks. And so I had a speaking engagement. I had the pop-up. I had my podcast recording, regular work, working out, packing, all of the things leading up. And so finally, everything happened. Everything went really well. The speaking engagement went really well. The pop-up went really well. The podcast recordings went really well. Everything was oh, cool. Everything's working out for me. And then we get on vacation. Day one, I've still felt tight is the only word that I can think of, just wound up still. I just felt I had things that I needed to do. I had work maybe, and kept checking my emails, nothing there, kept checking, and I just didn't need to. And so day two, same thing. I remember telling my husband, I cannot slow down. I cannot relax. I do not feel like I'm on vacation. He was like, what? We're literally in Italy. What do you mean you don't feel like you're on vacation? I just didn't feel relaxed, if that makes sense. And so leading up to the vacation, I bought several books. I couldn't wait to read. I couldn't wait to do nothing. I couldn't wait to just drop in. I was the amount of creative juices that are going to come out, the amount of ideas I'm going to get, it's going to be crazy. I was really so excited for this vacation. And I just couldn't get there. It was the weirdest thing. And so finally, on day 3, I started to finally relax. I felt day 3, day 4, I was really dropping into being on vacation and just whatever, whatever's clever. I'm on vacation, no rules. You guys know the vibe, right? Also around that same time, and even leading up, the month leading up, and then day 1 through 3 on the vacation, I just felt I couldn't quite drop in. Typically in my day-to-day, I'll do hot yoga several times throughout the week. And I really feel I get a lot of clarity after class, when we're in Shavasana. And I just wasn't getting clarity. I don't know, nothing. It was just empty. I don't know how to explain it. And I don't know if you guys can resonate in terms of when you get your quiet time, me time, like aligned action. It's almost like my higher self or like, the Holy Spirit, like just like giving me whatever I need in that moment. I could like, just like get thoughts of things that feel like inspired aligned action or just like inspired aligned thoughts or, whatever it is, something that is like greater than me that I receive. So that's what my like life is like regularly. Well, leading up, I just couldn't tap in, but I also wasn't really worried about it because I was just like, yeah, I'm so busy. Like I'm just in a season right now and it's fine. Well, when I got on vacation, like I just really couldn't tap in. Like I tried to do some meditation, like nothing. I would try to like relax and be still. And like I was like dropping in and being still, but I just wasn't getting like, I don't know, like the same feeling that I typically get when I put myself in that position. And so around day 3 or day 4, I started to like get that tingly feeling in my throat where you're not like, I like to not tell myself I'm feeling sick because I feel like then that just speeds up the process. When I tell myself that I'm not sick, then I like actually don't get sick. I mean, I'm not even going to get into the science behind that, but that's usually true for me. Anyway, so that doesn't work. I end up getting sick. And I'm like, I mean, you guys know when someone gets sick, typically, and they're in a group setting, like everyone around them will get the same thing. They'll all get sick because they're all sharing germs and they're all around or whatever. I was literally the only person to get sick on vacation. And we went with my husband, Cameron's family, and one of his cousins asked him, does Aisha work a lot? And Cam was like, yeah, I mean, reasonable amount. And she says, that's so funny that she got sick because typically the moment her mom puts her computer down on vacation, she also gets sick from leisure sickness. And I was like, my husband told me that. And I was like, what is leisure sickness? And so one night I was so like the next day I was so sick. I couldn't even like hang for the full day. I was like back in the room the whole time. Even at night, I didn't go out with everyone. I didn't go to dinner. I just like literally wasn't feeling good. Like to the point where you're just like laying there, like nothing can help me. My throat hurts so bad. My head hurts. My body hurts. Like I was just literally sick. And so while I was sick, I started to Google like, what is leisure sickness? And basically leisure sickness is like a term that's used to describe like where some people feel like sick or get sick while they're taking time off from work or school, like any time really to relax from like their thing. And it's strange because like what's expected like for you to happen on vacation is to feel good, relax, like enjoy your leisure time. But one of the reasons why leisure sickness happens is because our bodies are used to like the routine that we've created and the corresponding stress levels around that routine, work schedule, whatever it is. And so once you switch to a more relaxed environment, mood, vibe causes our bodies to react in a way that makes us like feel unwell. But really what it is that your body is releasing the built up stress hormones that you had, just like adrenaline and cortisol. And then the releasing of that, it's like your body's like putting its guard down. Like basically, in a way, you're creating a fight or flight response by working so much. So my body's like, oh my God, we have to produce all of this to like keep her alive while she's fighting. So like a really strong immune system, like all of the things because she's in fight or flight to like allow her to survive. Like that's what my body's basically doing. And so when I slow down and relax, my body's like, whew, okay, we don't have to do all this to like, help her anymore. We can take a break. So basically those like the releasing of those hormones are like no longer having like adrenaline and cortisol in my body to that extreme. It affects our immune system and makes us more susceptible to getting sick. So when I read that night, because like that thought played in my head over and over again that someone else had noticed, I guess, like how much I was working and then, was able to deduce like this is probably leisure sickness because no one else is literally sick. We've been all doing the same thing, sharing the same drinks, eating the same food, going to the same places. And so when I read that, I instantly felt like conviction around it. Usually I feel like in my chest when something is like spot on that I maybe have resistance around or maybe had a blind spot towards. And so I knew in that moment, I was like, damn, this is me. And I was really frustrated with myself because I felt like I did all of this stuff leading up to have a relaxing vacation, to be able to drop in, to be able to create, to be able to like do all of the things. Like I built up so much around this and began to add so much more. It was almost like the more I added to my plate in my mind equated to the more I can relax and the better I could experience I could have while on vacation. And so because I was in such a fight or flight state, that also makes sense why I couldn't really drop in and get clarity or that like aligned action, because when your mind is in that fight or flight state, like you're not able to like think in the way that you were able to in the past. And I'm not great at explaining the full science behind it, but just trust me, if you want, Google it. But really though, that was like what was happening to me. So I was like, okay, well, let me try to get better. Let me still like be out and do the things. And I don't want to miss out on like the rest of my vacation. I still want to have fun. So it's fine. I'll figure it out. Plus like sunlight will help and I'll be hydrated and I'll take like medication, blah, blah, blah. So needless to say, like throughout that trip, I had a great trip and I just like released, well, maybe I didn't, but I felt like I needed to release the desire to like have the same outcome of the vacation that I thought, which was like clarity, creativity, like just relaxation. So that was what I was like working through on the vacation, but I had so much resistance around it. But really because I just needed to be still and like chill the fuck out for a second. But when I got home, I still felt that way. I still felt like I couldn't drop in. Like I didn't have much to do when I got back. And it just like wasn't working out for me. I was still sick. It was just, like it was just murky. I just felt like my brain was clouded and cloudy and like not great. And so I was hyper emotional about it because I was just like, it almost felt like my emotion wasn't warranted of like what the reality was. Like if the reality was a 5, my emotions around it were a 10. Like I just felt like, why can't I drop in? Why can I drop in? And I knew that like me being sick meant that I needed to slow down and reduce like my workload and my plate, but I didn't know what action specifically that was because I couldn't drop in to figure out what my aligned action is, which is usually like, when I'm quiet and I'm meditating or just have gotten out of a meditation to tell me like what's next. And so at this point, the reason why I value that so much is because I have taken unaligned action for so long that like now I'm just hypersensitive to what my next steps are. And I want to feel really confident about it by going inward. And if I can't hear, I'm like, I can't move, right? Like I just don't want to take unaligned action. And so I was still struggling to drop in when I got home and was texting a friend about it. My friend Melissa, she has been a huge proponent of Hypnobreathwork and has talked about how it's changed her life and her business and how she's a coach and has like, $500,000 launches and things like that because she's just taken this aligned action and used Hypnobreathwork as a modality to do that. And so I was sharing with her like, hey, like, I'm struggling with dropping in, and she's super like spiritual and all the things. So, we were just kind of like getting into what would be helpful. And she talked about Hypnobreathwork. And what I knew at the time before I started was that I needed to like reduce things. And I felt like that meant take things off of my plate in terms of stop doing things. So what's currently on my plate and what lights me up is butterfly season, this podcast. I love it so much. I love hanging out with you guys. I love all of everything about it. Whxte, my jewelry brand. Love it all. Aspen, which is a nonprofit that I'm working with 2 friends, love that as well. And then consulting. Consulting is something that I'm great at. Consulting is something that makes the money. Consulting is something that allows me to do fun stuff like butterfly season and Whxte, which my goal is to fully transition out of consulting and then into my jewelry line, nonprofit, and butterfly season all full time. So I felt like I had to remove one or some of those things, and that didn't sit well with me. Like I just didn't want to do that, and I felt so much resistance. I was feeling like irritated and bitterness around it. Like I don't want to consult like this, like that be my full-time thing. I want the other things to be my full-time thing, but I feel like I need to still consult in order to fund my full-time things. So like, it was interesting on how it was playing out in my mind. And Melissa was like, you know what? I think you should do Hypnobreathwork. I'm going to like do a little course on it and take the course, do it for like 30 days and then just see what happens. it wasn't necessarily a course, but she like held alive. And basically what the Hypnobreathwork does, for those of you who have never heard of it before, one great resource is the Mastery app, Mastry. I have it. I use it. What I'm about to get into is not on the Mastery app, but there is almost an identical meditation called Abundance, I want to say. And the founder of Mastery will be on the podcast soon. I think we're going to record in like 2 months. So that will be really amazing. But download the app. That's the Hypnobreathwork that I was doing and have transitioned into a very, very similar one, but put on by my friend Melissa. And so anyways, basically what Hypnobreathwork does is you're doing like a breathing exercise to like oxidize, I think that's what it's called, the mind, get more air, oxygen to your brain. And that helps you get into that like meditative state quicker. And when you get into the meditative state, there's a corresponding guided meditation that walks you through what you're trying to manifest or your intentions or your goals, business, life, personal, whatever it is. It guides you through those intentions. And then it also guides you through pulling out those emotions so that you feel them. And the emotions are the emotions that you would feel when that thing happens. So your intentions are like the facts of what you're wanting to like bring into your life, your goals, like, you know, all the things that you want to create and do and be. And then the emotions of how it would feel once you get those things. Towards the end of the meditation, you like marry those two things together. You marry the like intentions and the emotions. And then from there, it'll ask you, or the guided meditation asks you to ask yourself, your subconscious, your higher self, like, what is my next action item? Like, what is the next thing, the most immediate thing that I need to do right now to further me towards this goal? And the idea is whatever comes up for you, you write it down and you take action on those things. Like you just complete them. And that is like, in a nutshell, what my friend Melissa Hinault has said has transformed her life. And just as a side tangent, I will be speaking at her event and I really want you guys to be there. I'm going to link all of the details in the show notes for you. This is on October 6th in Nashville. And so basically, I'm going to be doing that for 120 days. And it's for the next 3 months, of all the things that I want to like call into my life and bring in and all the things like what's my aligned action. Anyway, so that's Hypnobreathwork in a nutshell. And so I did that for 2 days and was still feeling super stuck on like, what was next? What do I need to do? What like inspired action do I need to take? And literally, I think it was on the second day, I was still like highly emotional about it. And I was feeding my cat and heard like how I typically will hear things. Reduce doesn't mean remove. And I like honestly like brought me to tears because I felt like I couldn't like hear you. Like I finally can now. And what I was struggling with was I didn't want to remove anything from my plate. Like the one thing that I did want to remove, I felt like I couldn't remove it because it's like, you know, allowing me to do creative things like butterfly season, white, and aspen. And I got the download. Reduce doesn't mean remove. And so I'm like, oh, God bless. Like, thank you. Because that's not what I wanted to do. And that what that meant to me is like delegating things in a different way, like a way that I wouldn't have thought before, to allow me the free time, the free space to take inspired, aligned action, but also reducing like my workload, reducing my output, because the negative loop, like the incorrect loop, was that I need to have a lot of output to be able to reap the rewards. Like that's what put me in, that was a space I was in before going to Europe. And what I know now is that a bunch of output doesn't equate all of the time to success. A bunch of output doesn't equate to all of the things. Like I actually, for me, especially for anyone who's like hyper into human design, like I'm a projector or self-projecting projector. And like, I actually shouldn't be doing that much. It's just not conducive for me. Hence why my body was reacting the way that it was reacting and showing me that like I'm actually in fight or flight. And so this is a little bit more like woo-woo into all of the things in terms of the benefits of Hypnobreathwork. Like we talked about what it is. We talked about why I did it. But well, really, let me talk about fight or flight and how fight or flight actually doesn't support calling in the life you want to live. So it's really a lack of alignment by constantly being like having adrenal fatigue, being in fight or flight, right? And so manifestation requires like our thoughts and emotions, beliefs, intentions, whatever you want to call it, to align with our thoughts. Like all of that should be in alignment. What we're calling in should be in alignment with our thoughts, our beliefs, our intentions, and what we want to attract, right? And so the fight or flight response is like primarily concerned with survival. And so your mind is so focused on surviving that you're not in a state to receive the clarity and alignment that's needed for manifestation, or even just more simply aligned action. And so it distracts us. It really is distracting us from focusing on our desires and like disrupting the coherence between conscious and subconscious mind. And so when I'm telling you like, oh, I would get these like ideas or thoughts or downloads, and after hot yoga, like that puts me like kind of in a meditative state, especially like towards the end. And I get like ideas and thoughts or get clarity on myself, and I'm able to like dig deeper into what needs to be worked on or healing or anything. Like that's me not being in a fight or flight, and I'm having like coherence. They're able to talk. My conscious and my subconscious are able to talk and like conspire with me, right? Well, when you're in fight or flight, those two things are not able to talk, which is why I wasn't able to hear like how I typically hear when I was on my trip, leading up to the trip, and then after the trip. And so my first 2 days of doing hypnobreathwork, I heard finally, again, reduce doesn't mean remove. So that is what I was looking for with hypnobreathwork. And I decided, you know what, I have like really big goals. And so for the next 3 months, I'm going to just do this every day and call in exactly what I want to call in, get myself in a regulated state so that I can reduce in an aligned way. Because reduce doesn't mean remove, like that's forcing me to get creative on like, how can I reduce while still having the same output or a like output, or maybe it's not the same output, but maybe it's like what I receive on the back end is actually equivalent to a bunch of hard work. Not to say not that I'm not going to work hard, but you know, maybe 1 hour of work would be the equivalent of a old version of me's 4 hours of work, which would reduce the same result. Does that make sense? I hope it does. And so after I heard that, I started to explore it. I heard like reduce doesn't mean remove. I started to explore like the benefits of hypnobreathwork. I'm like, how did I get here? Like I typically was able to get there through like hot yoga. And so now I wasn't doing that. So like, how did I get here? And basically like meditating helps you regulate your emotional responses and like reduces the intensity of negative emotions. And it also like enhances your ability to see your thoughts or heal your thoughts. Your thoughts without being overwhelmed by them. And so when I was talking to you like a second ago and I was like, yeah, I was like hyper emotional that I couldn't like hear. I just was like honestly crying about it. I was like, I just feel off. Something's not right. I just felt like out of sorts. And that's what that was. Like my emotional response wasn't regulated to what was actually happening. I told you that my emotional response was like a 10, but in all actuality, like what was going on was probably more closer to a 5. And so meditation fosters that like self-awareness, like it encourages you to observe your thoughts, which is really similar to how I feel when I'm microdosing. It allows my like subconscious mind to come to the top more clearly and quicker. And then I can use that as a thread to follow to be able to like unwind whatever needs to be unwound there and then integrate. And so that's like the same thing that hypnobreathwork has done for me. And by like having that like sense of compassion, it allows me to treat myself with kindness, honestly, and understand like the difficulties behind it and address them without judgment. I think what has hindered me in the past, and you might resonate, is that when I feel a feeling, if I judge myself for that feeling, I won't even explore it more deeply and understand what need isn't being met and how do I, you know, either rewire or reframe how I'm thinking about it, or I just don't even like address it at all. And so the reason why I'm like obsessing over, you know, why this challenge and just doing it for 120 days is because when you think about what you want to take action on, inspired action, aligned action, by meditating, especially with hypnobreathwork, it promotes neuroplasticity, which is really the brain's ability to change and reorganize itself. And so I've talked about this in the past with like microdosing, for example, and how that promotes neuroplasticity. And I've said this in the past, so forgive me if you've heard this before, but your brain is like, with meditation or with microdosing, it's like a snowy mountain. And so the first time snow drops, it's a really clean slate, right? There's no marks, like there's no anything. And the first time someone skis down it or snowboards down it, they make their own trail. And so think of each trail as a pattern of behavior. For the very first time that you do something in life, your brain records that pattern of behavior. And if you went down a negative pattern, anytime you encounter those next set of facts, you will follow that same pattern. It's why we have like a lot of people call programming around things. Like that's the pattern. And so anytime you're in a similar set of facts, you go down that pattern, which is like where toxic traits come from, right? You just continue to repeat the thing. And so with hypnobreathwork promoting neuroplasticity, it promotes the brain's ability to change and reorganize itself. And so it strengthens the neural connections that are associated with positive emotions like empathy and compassion, while simultaneously weakening neural pathways that are linked to negative emotions like, pain, suffering, negative self-talk, like all of those things. And so the benefit, obviously, or if it's not obvious at this point, of rewiring your brain, it like leads to lasting changes in your life, but also fosters the ability for you to take aligned action for what is your highest good, which gets you that much closer to what you're trying to like call in and manifest. And so that mindfulness, that practice, that paying attention to the present moment without judgment, even if it doesn't feel great, and then following that thread, taking action, healing that thing, right? While also keeping your goals, intentions, visions at the forefront, marrying those with your emotions. And then from there, taking inspired action that's like unfiltered through all the noise in a very meditative state. Like that is what has fostered like tremendous results in Melissa's life. And even just in my short period of time doing it, has given me the clarity that I needed at that moment of being in this fight or flight and like adrenal fatigue type of situation. So yeah, that's why I am doing an 120-day hypnobreathwork challenge, which honestly, I would love to continue that forever if that's just what I feel called to do at the end of the 120 days. But at least for now, that's what I'm calling it. And I'm excited to share with you at the end of the 120 days what I've been manifesting and then what actually came to fruition. This is like a diary, really. I'm bringing you along with me on this journey. So there's nothing that's off limits in terms of sharing. And so I'm excited in the next, 3 months or so to peel back the curtain on like what has came up for me throughout this time. Anyways, if you have any questions on my practice and what I'm doing, message me, DM me. I'm like more than happy to like dig deep and dive in on this with you. It's beautiful, hard, great, rewarding, like all the things. It's a little bit of a cocoon season, if you will, in terms of like where I'm currently at, what I'm calling in and where I want to be. But I know at this point that the beauty is in the transformation. We celebrate that, right? Like that is the best part. The worst part is knowing that something needs to change and not knowing what the thing is. But the most beautiful part is like getting that like key, the like thread to follow, the map or whatever it is, getting the download of what needs to change, because now you have the information to make the change at least up until that point, and then you follow that thread until you get to the end of your cocoon season and into butterfly season. And so I'm really excited because I know the action that I need to take, and so I'm just kind of following that thread, and I'll let you know how it goes. Anyways, I hope you guys have a good one. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.